I'm going to just share some normal links and we'll try to figure out how to salvage this. This is hilarious. Mm. Hey, Scoop. Just you and me right now, man. I might not even turn this into an audio episode. I am so mad. I'm so disappointed. The whole thing fell apart. Good times. Hey, Kabakash. Hey, tech for your needs. Oh, yeah? You're shooting heavy on Sony now? Dude, you're bouncing around cameras, man. I'm gonna have to follow up with you on how you're digging that Sony. Kapakash! Good day. Well, we've got a story for why I'm late. I'm gonna hold off for just another minute, get a few more people kind of jumping in here. And I don't have a show, so this is what's gonna be hilarious. Here I got all up in my feels. I was really feeling myself. That's the kid phrase that I want to use. I Delenbit. Bit. Well, I mean, we'll chat it out. I don't know what happened. So I'm gonna chalk this one up to technical difficulties beyond my control. But audio is funky and annoying. This is a running theme for how we do this show. Yeah, we're gonna freestyle the show. That's right. That's absolutely correct. And again, I wasn't planning on doing like a casual pajama podcast, but we'll see how it goes. We got a few folks in here. Why don't I just like jump in? We'll do the actual pattern, and we'll wander wherever the conversation takes us. And we are live. Late! Welcome, everybody, to a completely impromptu video stream of the SGGQA podcast. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. And the QA was going to be the really important part this week, as we were going to try and do something a bit more ambitious. And something that we've done on the Patreon is do an audio town hall, and I was using this kind of platform to. It's a little like a Clubhouse, but it's kind of an open plug-in platform. You can make your own town hall audio conversation room, and it worked really well. We did it on the Patreon a couple weeks, actually now like a month ago. And I did tests over the weekend, and I even had like this really cool rig where we could still do kind of a passive video stream for folks to watch and listen to the conversation, and I could record all of the audio to make it sort of a recorded town hall podcast conversation. And I woke up this morning, I put all the pieces together. I could even record. So I'm doing this on Restream, and that's how I pull the audio to do the finished version of the podcast. And I could even see like levels moving back and forth between the various systems. And the second I put the room live so that other people could join, it completely fell apart. Like no levels, no audio, everything shut down. And so I don't know. I guess the little platform thing that we were using has either like died. Like there's certain, like me just trying to run a podcast completely shut down their hamster wheel server. I don't know. Super disappointed because I was like ready. This is April Fool's Day, but I'm gonna like do something I've never done before on the podcast. So I'm still gonna try and give that tool a shot. And that like I said, because it worked so well on the Patreon, we're gonna try and figure out some kind of solution. Because what I'd love to do is sort of radio style. People can pop in and pop out. It's kind of a call-in show. I've got so many people here that have great insights to offer, and I think this conversation would be really rich, actually getting you to be able to hear each other and contribute and participate. But what I was using apparently is a no-go, because I even tried on 2 different computers and a phone just to get any audio working, and it completely dead. Completely dead. So, we're going to do the impromptu pajama podcast, and we'll chat about... I still would like to offer up the same question. It's just a very broad, very open-ended... It's all about feels. It's how do you feel about your gadgets today? And what do you think about like the state of the tech industry and that open... I don't even want to guide beyond that. Wherever that question kind of sparks some sort of idea, you can take that and run with it. So, yeah, I'm really upset about that. I mean, it's hilarious because like I even had the blog post already, the somegadgetguy.com. It was going to be where we actually hosted it. I wasn't going to have to worry so much about doing the talking to camera thing, but it was great. So we've got some fun folks in this chat already. We got Scoop. Scoop is now shooting Sony, so I'm going to have to pick his brain about how much he likes that. We got Kapakash. We got Tech for Your Needs. We've got J-Man150, let's go! We got Ron Guido. We got Delambit. We got Michael Corcoran. We got Joe Hickey. Hey, Joe. Again, I'm lurking on your guys' show on the regular, but when my buddy Andrew was there, I actually did like pop up the keyboard to say hey. I don't always love derailing other people's podcasts, so... we got Mountain Dew Lou. We got Muppinish. We got Mind Your Helm. We've got a full crew already. And this is going to be kind of a funky pajama podcast. You know, even when I do a completely off-script pajama podcast, I have some idea of what I want to talk about. This morning, I had really put all my Easter eggs in one basket to do a more town hall style conversation. I was really excited to like play host, where it wasn't me just babbling at you all. You know, you throw a question to someone else, or hey Barry, how do you think about that? So, we'll figure it out. We'll sort it out. God, I just was so close, and I swear to you, I promise you, it was working. I got it to work. So now it's just going to make me like dig into this even harder. So yeah, the hilariousness of this going all borked on April Fool's Day. That's on me. Again, trying to get a little too big for my britches, a little too ambitious. But over the weekend, we had a lovely weekend. Over the last week, excuse me. Over the last week, both Lex and Marie have had really gross stomach bugs. And it was pretty gross. It was pretty gross. But they're both feeling a lot better now. But this is leading into Lex's spring break. So thankfully, she's going to get a little downtime just to kind of rest and recuperate and heal up. But we had a very low-key Easter because of that. We lucked out that we didn't really make big like Easter brunch or egg hunt kinds of plans. And that's good because we get to Easter and we got another little pocket of crazy rain in Southern California. So it would have been awful, right? my daughter picked out this lovely little Easter dress. It's floral and blues and greens, and she was so excited. And we were thinking like, oh, well, maybe we could meet up with some family or some of the neighbors want to do a little Easter egg hunt. And we ended up doing an impromptu one last week because one of her friends from school was going to be out of town for Easter, but they still wanted to do something. So we got together with that parent and we just did one like out here in our backyard. We just hit a bunch of eggs, and I actually shared a photo of Lex like full sprint trying to like knock this other kid out of the way to get to some of the eggs. So thankfully we got to do all that. And then Lex and Marie got sick. And thankfully I have not picked up whatever it is that was messing them up. But I also did make one crazy huge lasagna. So I have lasagna for the next week. I'm very happy. And that's kind of our Easter celebration in an eggshell. So hopefully you all had a lovely holiday weekend. If that was the type of holiday celebration that you were apt to celebrate. If you're not of that practicing variety, I hope you still had a lovely Easter weekend, just for all of the Easter folks, like not clogging up restaurants and stores and stuff. So hopefully it was very, very nice. Paul Purry, there was an ad before the show about bacon, and I'm eating bacon. That's weird, huh? Now that you've said that, I could crush a BLT right now. I think I'm gonna have to make that happen after we finish the stream. J-Man with 51, don't worry, we love having you on Joe and Sam Sunday stream. So it's not Joe Hickey, derailing by you is a pleasure. Okay, so here's the thing. I am also a tech fan, and I really do just like to hear what other people say about tech stuff, especially from like the Nomad Tech Project. I just kind of like hanging out. So one of the things that always kind of gets me in trouble is the second I post any kind of comment, I know the hosts are going to say, oh, hey, Juan, what's up? And it's going to change the direction of what I was listening to. So I'm trying to be a bit more judicious about when I really do show up in a chat. Just for not, I mean, like, I'm still lurking all of my favorite live streams. Like, I'm lurking when El Jefe is streaming, when Ike is streaming, Gadget Goddess, holla at your boy, LaShawn, Tech Preacher. But I have kind of taken a step back because this is one of the things why I wanted to do the audio town hall and why I really wanted to kind of open this up for actual live conversation is I am trying to find the fun again. I think it's been pretty clear from some of my recent editorials, and especially if you've been following this podcast week to week to week to week, is that I'm kind of in a burnout state. And when I get to just kind of camp back and consume and listen, and I'm not sort of on the spot to participate, I tend to have a bit more fun, and I'm not worried. So as soon as I drop that first comment in the chat and it kind of changes the direction of the conversation, then I feel like I'm sort of participating in the discussion and I'm kind of on. And I feel like I've turned on, like a switch gets flipped, and I'll drop a bunch of comments and I won't shut up after that. So I am trying to be a bit more conscious about the impact I have on my friends' shows. Oh, man. Gary the Fireman popping in just to say good morning, can't stay long, just a quick hello. Joe Hickey, Juan's iron stomach. Usually I'm the first one that like craters. My wife is actually much more robust than I am, but this one, I don't know what Marie and Lex did that was different than what I did, where they came into contact with something else. But there also has been this really gross, like, kid stomach flu bug that's been going around. So, I don't know. I'm hoping that I've avoided it. We'll see. Oh, Muppinish, that's great. I spent my Easter weekend hunting Easter eggs with my grandpa. That sounds like an awesome Easter weekend. Cherish that. I mean, I really hope you enjoyed that. Let's see. Dave Byrne, sorry I'm late. Just got out of a tense meeting. Well, I'm sorry the meeting was tense, Dave. You have arrived at a completely broken show. Vasicos, it's like quantum physics. You change the outcome by observing it. I do. I know what kind of reputation I have. I know people sort of have an expectation of what I say and who I am. I mean, you all in the chat know. Like, I've got catchphrases that people like will repeat just by my mere appearance. So, like I said, I'm not, it's not like I'm not, like I don't want to participate with other people's shows, but I am trying to just not run the show or change the direction of the show. Except for in those moments where I can maybe just like pop up and say like, "Hey guys, doing great, you're awesome," and let them know that I am listening. But then I don't want there to be like a pressure or an obligation for people to like, "Oh well, Juan's here, now we've got to do something else." Mind your helm, who is El Jefe? El Jefe? Jeff does all the awesome earbud and audio. I mean, if you care about your ears at all and you enjoy the rich bass in your earbuds, you should absolutely be following El Jefe reviews. Nick Gay saying, "Sup, people? How's life, everyone?" Dave Burns, "Oh, good, good. I always hated this show anyway." You just keep coming back, Dave. Just keep coming back. Dang, Muppinish, your grandfather is 92 and you were out there doing an Easter egg hunt with him? That's amazing. I hope you got some good photos of that. That's awesome. Get that out of the way here. Okay, so the audio town hall was going to be focused on how do you feel about tech right now? And I'm going to leave that as a big open question. And anyone who responds, that's going to kind of divert. That's going to change the direction of what we're going to talk about and where we're going to go. I have already expressed, and one of the reasons why I just went off on that tangent talking about not trying to step on other friends' podcasts is I am kind of burnt out. I feel like so many of these conversations remind me of how before I was some gadget guy, I used to write exclusively about like audio, tech, recording, and commercial voiceover performances. I was a commercial voiceover. Well, first I was an agent assistant, then I was a booth director at a at a talent agency that no longer exists, and that breaks my heart. I just recently cratered and disappeared. And then I was a casting director. So I would put together a casting, have actors actually come into my booth, we would direct sessions, and then we would use those to book commercials. And while I was some audio guy, believe it or not, some audio guy had this reputation for being kind of a snarky asshole. Who would have thought? But I was even more kind of aggressive as that persona than I was as some gadget guy. Because it was also kind of the learning opportunity where some audio guy would sometimes comment on like bad booth behavior or, you know, things not to do in your television commercial audition, stuff like that. But the side of that was I was writing a lot and I was reviewing a lot for home recording equipment. And I kept getting these like one-off questions. Someone would find my blog, ask me this question. I would say like, "Oh yeah, you know, I've actually answered that question similarly. I mean, it's not exactly what you're talking about, but if you read this blog post, you'll get a good idea." And then there would be this kind of entitled pushback that like I wasn't giving them the exact answer that they deserved because they came and gave me a click and a view on my website. And I don't know about y'all, but I kind of feel like there's something brewing in tech land that is very analogous. I posted a video recently about the Snapdragon X Elite. Qualcomm was kind enough to train me down. I don't think you can use train as a verb, but they put me on a train to go down to San Diego so I could just play around and run some benchmarks, some very controlled benchmarks on an X Elite test platform. So that to me is not the situation where you write or you shoot a video of hardcore in-depth review benches and bar graphs, right? That's not That's not the real review. You would never call that a review. Seeing controlled benchmarks from Qualcomm does not mean I make a 2-hour Gamers Nexus style hard-hitting investigative piece about performance on X Elite versus Intel and AMD. That's, hey, Qualcomm paid for my trip, so already we need to disclose that as some kind of value or sponsorship. And two, a lot of these benchmarks, you've already seen the PowerPoint presentation slides, so you already know how this is working. Sorry, I'm explaining this for a reason. So I published that video, and so many comments have been like, like I mentioned last week, one person literally said, how could you even call this a review? Where nowhere in that video do I call this a review. And I called him out on it, and thankfully after I called him out on it, he deleted his comment. But then so many of these are like, oh, well, this is a big fat nothing burger. And you're like, well, then you didn't really watch the video. You were just waiting for me to read benchmark results off at you. And that's when it kind of clicked. If you're a fan of Gamers Nexus, I feel there are two fans of Gamers Nexus. There are people like me who leave that channel on all the time. Like, it has become some of my favorite background noise, and I just let their videos play out. I'm just letting the whole thing play, and I'm kind of tuning in and tuning out and tuning in and tuning out. Then there's the fan, big air quotes fan, who demands the knowledge that Gamers Nexus has gone through weeks of testing and verifying and benchmarking and system building. They require that you show all your work so that then they will go to the review video, go to the only one little section that matters to them, if it's like one gaming benchmark or one video benchmark, and they will reward you with a minute of watch time and then act like what they've given you is so valuable. I gave you a minute of watch time. That's your reward for doing weeks of work and all of this production and presentation and running this whole laboratory so that you can gratify my curiosity on this one little 1-minute slice of your video. I'm gonna drink some coffee here real quick. And unfortunately, those folks seem to be the loudest. Where I've gotten comments like, oh, I only want to watch content creators who respect my time and put in chapters and markings and all of this stuff. And you're like, cool. But the whole point of this X Elite video is like, it's literally just a walk and talk vlog talking about what it was like really benchmarking the thing. I mean, like, if you want to ask questions, I've got a ton of technical data. But instead, you came in like a jerk, so now I'm just going to mute you. So that's the kind of enthusiast conversation that completely burnt me out as some audio guy. I demand access to the knowledge in your head where you've been working in commercial voiceover for 10 years, and obviously you should give it to me because I have deigned to visit your website once and not engaged in any other contribution or fashion. And tech is starting to feel a little like that for me. So let me go back here, and I saw a couple of comments. Dave Burns, Juan, a snarky a-hole? Really? Nick Gay, tech is capped in North America, less experimental, very much about profit margins. I feel like tech internationally, I feel like that's generally true, but here in the United States, and especially, I mean, in North America and especially in the United States, it's dominated by one conversation about like Apple versus Samsung. And when that's 80% of your market right there, that's not a good sign. Carl Gunderson, how snarky is SGG now compared to some audio guy? Some gadget guy is snarkier about massive corporations. I think I still get a little bitey, especially when it comes to Apple. And personally, I need to share like the personal chip on my shoulder when it comes to Samsung. But some audio guy was hypercritical of things like booth behavior. So I try not to be as hard on end users of these products as I am really upset with the executive level corporate decisions from these companies. So if that's like the big difference, I feel like some audio guys' ire was very focused and directed on individuals who should have known better and were claiming to be professionals but would do very unprofessional things in my booth. And then some gadget guy is, I think I want to be a better educator as some gadget guy, but still the frustration still comes out. The snark still comes out. So, Dave Burns. I'm just out of tech land because I'm not interested in hype trains as a cranky old man. I'm very interested in real and measurable improvement that new technologies can offer my life. A new amazing chip for ultralight PCs sounds great to me. I want to know about the battery life. And that's also been part of the nuance is, I mean, again, we're talking specifically about X Elite here and why so many of those PC benchmark bar graph nerds are so insufferable. It's not that I'm trying to write a commercial for Qualcomm. It's that I'm trying to tell the part of the story that is applicable to Qualcomm. And that is, Qualcomm made a chip, and they're testing their chip in their own reference design systems, and that's not a real product. That's not going to be sold to consumers. There is very little that we can deliver directly and say, this is what you're going to get. But the bar graph nerds want to see the bar graph and know, well, when I buy a computer, that's the bar graph, that's how I'll make my decision. And you're like, this is fundamentally different than what you've experienced in PC land before. It is not a complete oranges to oranges comparison. These are tests run in very controlled circumstances that I'm sure are designed to make Qualcomm look good. And we won't know anything until we see proper support from Microsoft in the next sort of updates to Windows 11 and Windows on ARM, and what the OEMs do to put that chip in an actual computer that people can buy. And that nuance is almost impossible to break through because as far as they're concerned, you have a chip and the chip can run these tests. And you're like, that is not indicative of what a system built around this chip is going to deliver. And when you see a test of like, you know, an AMD or an Intel chip, big parts of those tests are built around what system did you configure around that chip. And there are some things that we start taking for granted, but I think it's very important that we don't take those things for granted in a reference design system on a totally new architecture that most of these people have almost no experience running ARM PCs and Windows on ARM. So I refuse to just say, oh, well, it will be 73 Tilly flops. And you're like, oh, well, that sounds not good enough. And then you've completely, the airplane has orbited that person's head and completely flown over. Sorry, Dave Burns. That second fan is the exact person the AI chatbot was built for. This is a derogatory statement. I kind of feel you, Dave. I definitely feel you. And Joe Hickey, how can you call this a review without saying the word review? Oh, Michael Corcoran. I haven't watched that video. Actually, I haven't watched Rossman in a bit. I need to catch up on some of his videos. Corcoran writes, did you see Rossman's video about Google and buying a Pixel forcing you to wave away your right to sue them? This is a very unfortunate trend in a lot of tech, is you buy the product and in the terms of service, just to use it before you can do anything else with it, you have to agree to binding arbitration. And this is one of those things where they can put that in the TOS all they want. If we can build some regulatory momentum through the FTC, that kind of stuff can be null and void. That kind of stuff can be voided if we put pressure on our elected officials and we communicate with the FTC. I am not joking when I say I regularly write letters to the FTC. Every single time you're frustrated about a tech company doing something really scummy or you feel is anti-competitive, instead of putting it in a tweet, punch out that message, just like you would have, and send it to the anti-competition wing of the FTC. I mean, you can still tweet it. I'm not saying don't try to call attention to it, but we feel like we burn all of this energy on social media. We burn all of this effort, and we feel like we're raising our voices and we're yelling into the megaphone. Senators, congressmen, regulators, they don't care about your tweets at all. But if literally, like right now, I've got about 50 people just kind of jumping into the stream, which I'm shocked. Hey, people, welcome to the stream. This is going to be a dumpster fire of a show, so I apologize for you joining in this kind of state. But literally, if something crazy bad happened and binding arbitration, and you think, hey, that's a very anti-competitive business practice, and I can't disagree with it if I want to use this product. Instead of leaving a comment on a Louis Rossmann video, you copied the link to a Louis Rossmann video and you wrote that message out to the regulators at the FTC and you say, hey, this is really scummy. If 50 of us did that all at the same time, we would actually be generating a little bit more interest in investigating that situation than we would ever generate if we got millions of impressions on Facebook. No one will pay attention if we get hundreds of thousands of shares on Twitter. But literally 100 people hitting them all at the same time saying, hey, this is BS. Someone at the FTC might go, hey, you know what? That is kind of BS. And we might move the needle. That's the illusion of this kind of tech conversation on social media. It's only for likes and shares and monetization. That isn't the part that really affects change unless you can create some kind of snowball event where hundreds of millions of people are complaining, and in those hundreds of millions of people, you'll have thousands who are pinging the FCC and the FTC. That's when they'll pay attention. But we can shortcut around that. We don't have to do the hopefully this will go viral thing and enrich the social media platform. We can just go directly to the regulators. We can go directly to our elected officials. We don't have to hope that our social media traffic will eventually be paid attention to. Oh, fat produce. Hey, at least Apple is finally being sued by the federal government. You're so gleeful about it. I mean, I am too, but I just think it's cute. Muppinish. I hope Apple gets a good spanking. I'm going to start changing the tone of this show here. I've already said a-hole, so I know this is a PG-13 stream now. Oh, a DTNL. That's very kind of you. We all grow and change, Juan. If that edgy phase of some audio guy is what was needed to get to this version of Juan, we don't hold it against you. We love and appreciate you. Well, I definitely appreciate that too. And Gabaletta and Q3 Becker both subscribed with Prime. Thank you so much for supporting. Did I miss anyone? I have my Twitch chat up, but it's not updating like I think it should. Oh, no, I don't get those. So thank you so much for both of you. Because of the setup that I was gonna run for the audio town hall, I don't think my wacky fanfare of glory is gonna work. But here, let's give it a try just in case it does. I'm going to do this. No, that didn't work at all. So, a fanfare of glory to Gabaletta and Q3 Becker. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And for everybody who's sharing and reviewing on your favorite podcast services and podcast apps. And for all of you nerds who like to come and actually properly join a conversation about sort of the grander philosophy, not just, this one has more megapixels. So yeah. Yeah. See, yeah, Carl Gunderson, this is what I mean, is it is enforceable until it's not. Sorry, Carl's comment, Google isn't forcing you to sign a waiver saying that you can't sell your used device or whatever. It's a scare tactic. It's not enforceable in any way, shape, nor form. We're going to see... So, Carl, you're not wrong. You're technically not wrong, but to complete that process means you have to engage with Google and Google's lawyers in some kind of arbitration or courtroom setting. And that's what the scare tactic is. It's the same thing. Like, I can work my butt off to make an incredible analysis of a movie and really do transformative things with copyrighted material. There is no preemptive way for me to defend commentary and critique or transformative use. I have to engage with the lawyers of a mega corporation to defend my fair use rights. Again, we've gotten into a place where if it's an individual or a class of people going up against a supercorp like Alphabet or Apple or Amazon, it is really not feasible for an individual or a small group to fight that effectively. And so, same thing. Tesla has a policy where you can't resell the Cybertruck. So that's what I mean when I say if you have an issue or you think something is anti-competitive, right now regulators seem pretty interested in going after big tech companies. And if you have a few people on your side and you're complaining about things like Tesla says I'm not allowed to resell my Cybertruck, and if I do resell my Cybertruck, then I'll be banned from ever buying a Tesla again. To me, that sounds unenforceable. But me as an individual suing Tesla, that's a no-go. No lawyer is really going to take that case. But if that becomes an FTC anti-competition lawsuit, or if it escalates all the way up to like the Department of Justice, like we see with the Apple lawsuit, then we might be able to affect some change. So how do we get there? We get there with consumer complaints directly to those companies. So Carl and Michael, you're both kind of, sort of, technically correct. And that's what's so frustrating is we're in a tech legal limbo where there is old law that we're trying to use to regulate these industries that needs to be updated and needs to be refined for a 21st century economy. And the realities of working within those old laws, these corporations have gotten really good at putting pressure on consumers in ways that those original laws weren't really designed to handle. Those original regulations couldn't really account for. So definitely things need to change, and that's also why someone like Rossman is, I find a kindred spirit in someone like Rossman because he's so snarky angry all the time. But it can't only be on someone watching his videos and getting outraged and saying, well, I had my outrage for today. These things only change with some kind of action and participation. And that's what Rossman is trying to do, is trying to motivate people to also get upset enough that you will. Write a letter to your senator, write a letter to your congressman, write a letter to your state attorney general. Take the same letter, send it to a couple of different offices and regulators around the government. This is the stuff that will probably have a bigger impact than, hey guys, did you see this thing on Threads? I'm so mad about it. Reshare. Because none of our government officials are really that present on social media. Dave Burns, you wacky socialist, you. Juan is describing organizing. No, I'm not. Shut up. Buppinish, one thing that crypto mining has taught me is that comparing hardware and the output it has on different software is meaningless. You can compare mining Bitcoin and Ethereum, but how they calculate the current flops isn't the same. So I think that's a very good example of what I'm trying to express in my phone reviews and also what I experienced in the X Elite. When I review a phone and I compare that to some of my mini PC reviews, I'm showing you something like video rendering. Well, on a phone, I'm going to use an app called LumaFusion. On a PC, I'm going to use DaVinci Resolve. So immediately, that's not an oranges to oranges comparison. But what I don't care about is trying to find one program that works exactly the same way between my phone and my PC. I don't think we care if such an app existed. When I'm sitting in front of a computer, I expect one kind of workflow, and when I'm holding my phone, I expect a very different kind of workflow. So what I'm trying to show is the comparison of the comparison of near equal outcome. If I can match frame for frame what I do on my phone with what I do on my PC, and I can use almost the exact same kinds of transitions, filters, watermarks, soundtrack, etc., 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 I can show you the comparable output. I can show you my phone, obviously using a different program, can achieve a similar result in this amount of time. A new phone, a Dimensity 9300 in the Vivo X100 Pro, can achieve the same quality of output in a different program faster than I can on a second generation Threadripper with an RTX 4070 Ti. So thousands of dollars of PC versus a $1,000 phone, and the phone, it's not close. The phone crushes it pretty bad. So, correctly, I've got a bunch of PC nerds who want to see the PC win going, but that's not fair. And it's not the same app, and it's not the same. But I don't care about using the same app on two radically different computing devices. I care about the quality of the output and the time it took me to get there. And when you do that, you're having one specific kind of conversation. A how long does it take me to get the finished thing using any tool? If we're using any tool, I could use any tool on the PC, but I haven't found anything that's faster than DaVinci Resolve on my PC. I am showing the fastest thing that I have access to in terms of software. So when I'm trying to talk about X Elite, I think it's fair to say I went to steam.com and I installed Control. And then I played Control on this system. And at 24 watts for the whole system, which is about the peak power draw of a Steam Deck, I was able to play Control 1080p at just over 30 frames per second. I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't install Control for Windows on ARM or Control for Adreno GPUs. It's, as far as I can tell, the same executable and the same drivers and the same software that I would have downloaded on this machine as I would have on an x86 Intel or AMD PC. And I feel like that's a comparison. You can say, well, look, I can obviously get a much higher frame rate on a beefy Intel laptop with a discrete GPU. That's going to be 10 times the power draw. Actually, I was exaggerating, but I'm probably not exaggerating by much. Yeah, Joe Hickey, go through the right channels or just start tapping multiple channels. But again, anytime you feel like you've got a message for social media, also send it out. Simon says, Hypno, the town hall was not a prank. So you can go back. I didn't record it and I should have, but we did do an audio town hall on Patreon and it worked so well and it was really fun. And I am so upset that we couldn't get it working for the main show. So this wasn't me making a fool out of you. This was Jam making a fool out of me and dragging y'all along for it. So that's a bummer. Muppinish, this is the 1st of April. This show is actually pre-recorded. I tried to do that once. So I think it's still on YouTube. Or I might have unlisted it. I don't know. So the very, very, very first April Fool's joke video that I did on the channel was the original potato review, which I purposely tried to make as terrible looking as possible. It's an overhead shot of me reviewing a potato. And it's like 20 minutes of me talking about a potato. And then there's like a 10-minute blank black tail. So it looks like it's a 30-minute video, but really only half of it is me talking about a potato. And I worked so hard to make that the worst aspects of what I saw in tech reviews at the time. You know, like the wobbly, I had a folding tray to do the top down and it's wobbling all over the place. I purposely set the focus on my feet, not on the table, but with just a deep enough depth of field that it's kind of hard to see, but what's on the table is less in focus than what's on the floor. And then I followed that up a couple years later with trying to do a Hype Beast Yam review. But I did do another April Fool's joke in the vein of the old movie review show that we did. So back in 2008, me and a buddy, we ran this movie review show called Movies You May Have Missed. I've talked about it on the podcast before, and I won't shut up about it because this was like my baby. This was like the thing that got me into creating content online, and we actually had a lot of interest at one point. At one point, we were pulling like 3 million total downloads and listens a month. Well, maybe, I don't know that we ever cracked 3, but we were in the high 2s, like 2.6, 2.7, something like that. I'm rounding up. But the show went off the air, and you know, after doing 3 years of it and not being able to sell it or really find a good sponsor or advertising for it, and it was so frustrating because you'd have a lot of people like, hey, yeah, that's great. You're doing great. Just keep doing that. That's awesome. And then you'd be like, well, do you want to work with us? And we're like, no. Money for it. Ooh. And it makes me sad because, like, in many ways, we were kind of right on the same. We were kind of right in that same era as like Red Letter Media. Like the Plinkett reviews had come out, and we were in the mix in that same kind of exciting Revision 3 blip.tv era of live video. Sorry. Nostalgia. So a couple. Where were we? So that was still Tarzana. So yeah, I mean, it was not just pre-pandemic, but I think it probably would have been around the same time that, yeah, I think it was when I was at Pocket Now. I wasn't doing a whole lot on this channel, on my personal YouTube channel. And so I did a joke version of Movies You May Have Missed just as a solo. So I didn't get my buddy Lee back. I just did a Movies You May Have Missed style review of the movie It Follows, and did it all in one shot. And at the end of it, I tried to make it look like a Hangouts on Air. I tried to make it look like, you know, the live stream that you would have gotten at that time. And then at the end, there's like a spooky bit. It's terrible. It's horribly shot. But I put it all together in one continuous video piece. So it's all one shot, which to me is kind of a big deal that I could pull that off. But yeah, I think those are... I think I've only done the 3. I'm really not a huge fan anymore of trying to do anything April Foolsy. And I really like the kind of gags and jokes that we used to get a long time ago. My favorite April Fool's joke is still the YouTube Content Creator Awards. I'm not even sure if that video is still available. But again, it was when YouTube was trying to make Hangouts on Air a thing. I was still at the casting agency. So yeah, that would have been 2007, maybe? 2008? I can't remember. No, it was probably after 2008 because I think it was after the writer's strike. My brain is dividing my life into events like moving to Los Angeles and writer's strike of 2008, which coincided with the housing market collapse. So YouTube did this award show. Any video that had been uploaded to YouTube was eligible for an award, and the whole stream was just listing all of the nominees, which is a hilarious joke. Because they were really going through videos that had been uploaded to YouTube and reading off the name of the video and reading off the name of the channel and showing a little clip of the video. That's amazing. And they did that live stream with actual hosts for like 8 hours. And to me, that was brilliant. It was so meta. It was a labor of love. It celebrated the YouTube community. It was amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again. But the joke of it was just so loving, and it wasn't this mean-spirited sort of joke at the expense of the YouTube audience. It was the perfect way to celebrate just all of the content that had been, created for YouTube. So if I ever do another April Fool's joke, I'll probably stray hard, like just go off into something like wacky horror, or I would love to find something that's kind of community inspiring like that. But I'm kind of done trying to come up with something, something silly. Oh, you didn't see, what, who would have thought this is not real? And I feel like a lot of us are kind of burnt out on the way that the internet does April Fool's jokes now. So it's frustrating. Let me catch up with the chat. Drink a little bit more coffee. I have literally a sip of coffee left. Okay. Yeah, a DTNL, just write a letter. Some of us could use the practice. Let me tell you, it is not easy. Like, I am going, dear FTC. Did this guy write a letter to the FTC? It's funky. It's really weird. Like, drafting that kind of email is not something that we do a whole lot of. But I'm telling you, if we want to affect change, I feel like that's a better strategy for it. Let's see, from Muppinish, I know, find a video editing app for Windows 95 XP and run it in compatibility mode on Windows 11 and in a Windows 95 XP emulator on a phone for compatibility. See, that's what the PC nerds want us to do, right? They want the advantage to be, well, you have to use the same program, so you would have to like emulate it. And you're like, well, yeah, but that's just giving the advantage to the native code on x86. So if I'm comparing native code to native code, why is it that all these PCs lose? And when I'm cutting video on the phone, I'm doing it in a way that should give a PC with a 4070 Ti and DaVinci Resolve a significant advantage in not being the hardest video to render to upload YouTube quality. So yeah, I just think it's funny. But it's still, it's a bridge too far in terms of nuance for a lot of folks that don't want to hear anything critical about their preferred platform or brand. And when you start saying things like, oh, that's another one too, is like, hey, this X Elite is comparing directly against this kind of Intel system, blah, 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 blah. Well, obviously, Qualcomm can't compete against AMD then. Sure. You can't extrapolate the performance gains at a performance per watt against Qualcomm versus Intel and then say, well, an AMD system would perform like this, so we can plug those numbers. You know what? You're good. Just you keep doing you. Yeah, from Steve, because I messed that up. It's still funny to me that Steam.com is not the URL for Steam. I love it. Yeah, Michael Peppertech, this is another thing that the philosophy of it is what's getting lost. Michael Peppertech says, even if editing on the phone was slightly slower, the time it saves by being able to record on the same device would make up for that. So it's even crazier that you can do both really well. And that's another massive point, is people will say to me things like, oh, well, I would obviously use my real camera and then dump the footage. And you're like, cool, but then you can't really start working on it. So the video that I did in San Diego, unfortunately, I did have to finish on my PC because the audio borked on 2 clips. But the timeline was crafted on the phone. So I did this walk and talk vlog, and I was at the Qualcomm headquarters, and then I did some of the recap of that back at my hotel, and every clip I shot immediately went into my timeline. And then I I rendered out this rough timeline and then I had to finish. Unfortunately, I can't resync audio. If something breaks in the audio, I can't resync it in LumaFusion yet. I'm hoping that that will be coming to a future update for the Android version of LumaFusion. But I just like, you don't understand how fast that really is until you try it. You earnestly try it. And so many folks who really get up in their feels about dedicated mirrorless cameras and editing on PCs or on MacBooks, they aren't experimenting with that actual workflow. They're using the phone and then just replacing the camera with the phone and then keeping the exact same workflow. You're like, well, yeah, that's actually going to be even slower. Getting your files off of the phone and putting them on a MacBook is going to take way longer than just editing directly from your phone. And so, again, it's this whole like entrenched familiarity issue. And if you try and tell someone that it's a little unfamiliar, oh, I guess I can't use it. And you're like, oh, all right. Tech for your needs, Mr. Potato and Kappa Cash. That Yam review was fire. The Yam video, I thought the Yam video came out really well because I also had that whole middle section with that guest to talk about like the scratchability and the burn test on my Yam. I just thought it was, the teardown part of that video was really, really well done. Dave Burns, my favorite thing about late stage internet is that all the April Fool's jokes have good ROIs, and I just saw the tally and there will be no good April Fool's jokes this year. Oh, Paul got pulled into a meeting. Paul, but thank you for dropping by, man. I appreciate it. And again, a huge thank you to all the folks on the Discord that were trying to help me sort the audio issues with the town hall. And unfortunately, it still just never came to fruition. But I am going to do this. The next time I feel like I want to do like a pajama podcast, I might do a pre-stream just to see if it's working and actually get people interacting, and then we'll do the main show proper. But it killed me. I ran tests, I did recordings, I had everything. I felt like it was all set up, and then I push go on the public room and no audio for anyone. Killed me. If only there was a way that I could run something like that locally. Just run it on my own laptop, and that'll just be a little mini audio server, and then I can route all of the audio for the live stream. Yeah, it's rough. From Dave Burns, I actually do want the right tool for the right job. I will build one mega gaming PC and then get a work laptop from work that's built from my job. My goal with X Elite is to see if I can get maybe one of the higher performance tiers, something with active cooling, not a thin fanless system, and see if I can get a computer with power draw around 100 watts total and replace my 1200 watt workstation case, 1200 watt power supply in this massive Threadripper 4070 Ti case. And as long as my video rendering is close, I'm even willing to sacrifice. Like, let's say my renders take a little bit longer, but within like 10 to 15% longer. If I can pull that off and I can get rid of this massive server chassis that's under my desk right now, I would be so happy. And I feel like the people that have checked out Mac Minis and MacBooks, even Mac Studios, I think the Mac Studio is kind of a stupid product, but I feel like those folks kind of understand the journey that I want to try. The quest that I would like to walk down is I'm willing to trade some of the outright top tier performance if it means I arrive at a more power efficient system. And I want better battery life when I'm out in the field. I want to be able to actually edit video on battery when I'm out in the field, and I don't want to buy a MacBook. As excited as I am about Apple's chips and M series processors, I still don't want to give Apple any money. Oh, Muppinish, on the topic of power draw, guess who spent the day on undervolting their gaming laptop CPU and GPU? One could die for lower fan speed. And see, I don't want to have to do that. I have not actually tried undervolting my 4070 Ti. I mean, I should give that a shot just to see what it's like. But again, I can't make an audio room on the internet work. So, you know, it's great. Aditi Inil, The Journey to Tech Mecca, a 4-part docu-series with your host, Juan Bagnell. Man, I want it so bad. This is where like, when I'm saying things like, I'm a little burnt out, I'm trying to find fun. It's one of the reasons why I'm not jumping on every single phone coming out this year is I'm a little burnt out on kind of iterative phone changes and trying to find the excitement or trying to say this or trying to do that. And you're like, on my desk right now, I have a Xiaomi 12S Ultra. This phone is, so now we've done the 13 Ultra and the 14 Ultra. The 12S Ultra is still all around a better photography and video platform than any of the phones that are being sold in North America. This trio of sensors outperforms the trio of sensors on a Pixel 8 Pro. I mean, it's hardware to hardware. I'm not talking fully in software and stuff. But like, software can't completely account for enough of the experience to say that a Pixel 8 Pro is definitively a winner when I can put this head-to-head against a Pixel 8 Pro and show images that are more photographic or have a shallower depth of field or feel more like photographs. That's the problem that I feel we're running into is we're circling the same kinds of tiers right now while companies try to examine how little they can give us to maximize profits and revenue. And that's not an exciting conversation. I haven't jumped on a Xiaomi 14 Ultra. It looks awesome. And I do want some of those updates like getting 120 frame per second 4K video. That's cool. I don't want to spend $1,400 on another Xiaomi for it to be that one feature upgrade over my Xiaomi 13 Ultra. That's not doing it for me. I'm not excited by that. But I've got some mini PCs here. I've got some laptops here. I still have this ridiculous, chunky, like rugged system. And this year we're going to see something critically different with Windows on ARM. And that's exciting. This is fundamentally different than anything we've experienced before. And, well, I mean, the clue being we just saw this happen with MacBooks. So if something like this happens and it's akin to the transition from Intel systems to Apple Silicon, then I think we're in for a really fun conversation. Even if everything doesn't work perfect, the conversation and the exploration itself is going to be exciting, and that'll be fun to pick apart and to untangle. Vulgarity. Funnily, I'm looking to dump my M1 MacBook Pro to return to tried and true x86. Vulgarity, I'd love to hear more. I feel like a lot of folks who have picked up MacBooks seem to go out of their way in softening some of the tricky bits. They got the MacBook and they really love that it gets better battery life, the fans don't run as hard, it's not as loud, and in this app, man, the performance is outstanding. But then there's this sort of general softening of the compromises, like now maybe some of my accessories don't work, maybe I don't have full support for multi-monitor setup, maybe these types of applications never got updated for M1 because they were older legacy programs. We don't hear as much about that. The second we hear anything about Windows on ARM, people come crawling out of the woodwork to tell you all the things that don't work. And then you never hear about the cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, it gets great battery life, but what would you even do with it if I can't run this Windows 2000 program in legacy mode? And you're like, well, but who's doing that? Oh, average consumers really care about their software legacy support. think they do. I feel like, again, the vast majority of consumers who are doing most of their computing through iPhones these days probably don't care about some old legacy app that was built for Windows 2000. So, yeah, I'd love to hear vulgarity. What led you to feeling like you wanted to go back to x86? I mean, I understand why a computer with no power restrictions is so appealing. Like in the HEDT space, if I was building like a monster gaming rig, again, that 1200 watt power supply, that makes sense to me. I want that 4090. I want that Intel, not the Intel, the AMD 7950X3D. You know, like I want all that. Let's do it. I'm building a machine with no constraints. But the second I leave my office, I'm really only working out of a phone now. Because a machine with no constraints has the constraint of power. Oh, a DT Anil, man, I've been looking for something like this. It's very easy to suggest, and I'm not picking on you. Juan, if you're financially able, would hiring an editor, camera person, 2-in-1 help offload some of the burden and allow you to put some more of the fun back into your content? I understand the legal processes involved are complicated, but as a long-term investment, it might make sense. Yeah, boy, howdy, that'd be nice. I have actively been looking into how to make that happen, and unfortunately, editors and videographers here in Southern California, they expect to be paid, and that's kind of a little outside what I can afford to do. And if I like pick up an intern or someone that is just sort of a general PA style helper, I can teach them to do a lot of that stuff. And then after they pick up some skills, those kinds of people will want to move on to other industry or to other platforms and get paid more. I've also looked into services that like I could upload video clips and have a team edit it for me. And even with my dumb, simple, punchy clip, just cut out breaths and like slam cut all this stuff together, the output is either terrible, and my videos are not complex. They're as dumb simple as I can make them. Either the output is terrible, or again, you run into other problems. Like I've got to upload these 4K video clips and get a render back down. So the internet speeds are already problematic, and why I complain so much about not having fiber upload speeds in my neighborhood. All of that just, it like makes it completely untenable. And the few times that I've caught someone, you're like, hey, this is really good work. And then I look at their prices and it becomes this completely unattainable monthly subscription. And you're like, well, if you'd like to edit up to 10 minutes of video a month, and these people will do all of these graphics and inserts and do all this stuff. And you're like, cool, but how much is that going to cost? Way more. You're like, oh God, oh, it's so awful. So I have been trying to find some kind of solution for that, but it really is a lot harder to find a good balance. Someone that I feel I can pay appropriately, because again, I'm not trying to undercut people and I'm not trying to rip people off. I do want to pay someone well if they can do a good job editing these videos, but that also means every video I make has that delay. There are so many of these videos that I finish where I get done talking to the camera, I shoot some B-roll, and I can put it together that afternoon. And I'm making a compromise, and yeah, that video would have been better if I had spent another day, you know, really shooting this, or spent some extra time really, you know, managing transitions and putting together a cleaner edit. But after a point, it's like, I want to tell that story, and I'm not as impressed with all of the trappings of impressing you with my video editing skills. So I kind of just want to get the talking out. I'm a radio guy at heart. So I have this video, it's topical, it's timely, I can shoot it, I can cut it up, and I can serve it to you guys. Or I can shoot all this stuff and shoot all this B-roll and write out notes and send a copy of a script that I probably strayed from the script, and then upload that to a bucket, which is going to take way longer than uploading the finished video. And then 2 days later, an editor will give me a rough cut, and I'll have notes, and then it's going to go back to the editor, and then a day later I'll get a finished project, and then it's still going to take time to download or give them credentials to upload to my channel, and I've really got to trust someone for that. And what would have been a video I had out that afternoon is now a week later. And that's what kind of crushes me, is like, I am so entrenched in this little pocket of work that it's really difficult to crawl out of. Like, I've got to trust the person I'm working with, and I've got to build a relationship with that person that I'm working with. I've got to be paying them the whole time, right? I can't not pay someone even if the work is kind of garbage. They still did the work. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't be the employer that so many brands want to be for influencers. Like, oh, it's not really what we wanted, so I guess that's not our contract. If I want someone to get good at my editing style and to kind of help me tell that story, then I've got to trust that they'll learn and grow. But over all that time, it's also like, they're either going to become a really good editor and then want to do other projects and then not want to work for what I pay them anymore, or I've got to pay so much more to an editor who edits the way that like film, TV, and commercials edit. That's what a lot of people are working here in Southern California. So there's no urgency because I'm not a massive commercial client. We just had a massive power fluctuation. Let's see. Somehow my internet seems like it stayed connected. Someone in the chat just drop a comment if you can still hear me, because that was freaky. I literally, it says I'm still live. So if someone could just drop a note saying, hey Juan, we still hear you, that would be appreciated. I'm asking someone, okay, DTNL said we can hear you, great. Okay, we'll move on. That was my neighborhood's power grid saying, no, you're done talking about that. So there you go. Let me take another drink of water here. Whew, man, all good. So, sorry, a DTNL. To answer your question, yes, that would be great. Let's see. Let's see, Dave Burns. The only potential thing I would care about for Windows on ARM would be data cleaning capabilities with Excel for desktop. Excel for desktop runs really well on the 8CX Gen 3. So I think an X Elite will probably be overkill. Unless you're working with really large Excel workbooks. You'll be fine. Like it'll tackle that really well. Oh, vulgarity. I'm pretty average, but I miss better RAM and storage per dollar and a file system that doesn't make me want to tear my hair out. That's totally fair. But I think if you can stick it out with your MacBook for just a little bit longer, get through the summer, see some of the reviews on these Windows on ARM machines, and anything you were doing on your MacBook, because again, on a MacBook, you were already dealing with Apple software. So the legacy software hit on Windows shouldn't be extreme. And then you might be able to see like, hey, I can transfer. I can get the battery life that I was hoping to get out of the MacBook. I can get performance that's pretty much in line with a decently built premium Intel machine. And I'm going to sacrifice some legacy software apps, but you'll get, hopefully, better RAM and storage per dollar and a file system that doesn't want to make you tear your hair out. This is all up to the OEMs. The OEMs could give us garbage MacBook systems. I bet Samsung is going to come out the gate as one of the most expensive options of the summer. That's my hypothesis. It's going to be Microsoft and Samsung selling at the ludicrously expensive end of this, and then hopefully a Lenovo comes in with a good business-focused version of this, and I hope we'll see out of like a Lenovo the ability to still do things like upgrade storage. I don't think we're going to get upgradable RAM on this first generation of X Elite. I think that is going to be soldered into the main board. That's going to be a bummer. But if they can still give us the, I don't think I've got my Robo Incala in here, But my Robo Ancala has a little mini SSD in it, and I can pop off the back cover of that SSD, take it out, and upgrade the Robo Ancala if I want to. So I'm hoping we'll get that in a Lenovo. But just keep an eye out. I would say this is one of those times where it might be worth it to wait instead of jumping right back into x86. Just hold off. Hold off a little bit. Let's see what comes after Microsoft's announcement next month. And then that will also help make your decision. If you don't see anything that you really feel like that's going to be the good fit for me, then you know I'm going to go x86 and I'm going to get this and I'm going to get what I want. If you buy x86 this month and then you see a Windows on ARM laptop that can do all the things that you want to do at a third the power draw, that's going to sting a bit. You're going to be bummed out by that. Oh yeah, Michael Peppertech again. I mean, it's like there are so many of these really good solutions that I feel geeks are overlooking. X Elite with the performance and lightweight and battery, but also this would mean you could remote into a crazy power hungry setup if you need more than that without the battery still dying. Yeah, your ability to run remote. So like I could keep this massive silly workstation and log into it remote would be pretty good. I don't know. I just feel like the entire conversation, especially from the sort of AMD versus Intel junkies, is completely lopsided right now. Goat V8. This is a great question. Goat V8 asks, if this all leads to a new version of Windows mobile phones, would you be on board? I am desperately hoping that that improving performance on Windows on ARM, having Windows running on Qualcomm Orion cores, and knowing that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 is going to be moving over to Orion cores, means that we get some focus again on making a more mobile presentation of Windows. If it's literally just a reformat of how our home screen works, but it's still just Windows on ARM, but it's attached to a Qualcomm SoC and a Qualcomm radio, then it makes sense to maybe bring back something like the Surface Duo. I don't think Microsoft is going to do an actual Duo with two screens on a hinge, but it could be an opening folding Surface, like a an Open or a Pixel Fold or a Galaxy Fold, but running Windows 11. And if it had a Snapdragon 8 Gen 4, it wouldn't be as powerful as the X Elite, but it would be similar enough in architecture that it would be kind of like going from a Core i7 down to like Core i5, or maybe even, like, let's be fair, like a Core i3. But the Snapdragon 8 CX Gen 3 was already like an Intel Core i3, and that machine is phenomenal, especially when you're running native ARM code or Linux apps. Beautiful. So if I could just get a streamlined front face of the of your start menu as the home screen, and then you open it into something that's a little bit more Surface tablety, that would be a dream device. I would love that. It makes me even more sad that we're ending support for the Windows subsystem for Android, because we could have migrated a lot of Android apps with that kind of hardware. We've got this Windows 11 foldable device that can fit in your pocket, still gets 5G reception, has this great Qualcomm chipset in it, and it's running Windows on ARM, which is running really well on lower power machines. And then we don't have to worry about migrating your Android apps. You can install your Android apps directly into that system and use them just like any of your Windows apps. That to me was the dream. I really wanted to see Microsoft completely end run around the phone market and come back to do something like that. So Goat V8, I would absolutely give it a try. I would just... I know I would probably have to sacrifice things like camera performance, but man, for the overall computing platform, I would definitely be on board. For sure. McCorcoran, video killed the radio star. Absolutely true. Michael Peppertech, my videos are so simple that I just need to find a good program that removes dead air or breaths, but also understands when I'm not talking, but something is still going on. Any suggestions? I have none. This is something that I think AI might be able to help us with, like in the near future. I would be very surprised if by 2026 there isn't just a built-in plugin to DaVinci Resolve that can scan for pauses and breaths and slam cut your video for you. I I don't know that something like that exists, but if someone has a recommendation for Michael Peppertech, please drop a chat or a comment. There was another power flicker. Woof! This show might not make it to 2 hours. Ooh, Nicholas. I don't know what the exchange rate on that is. Must say I bought an Xperia 1 Mark IV on Friday, paid 990 yen. Hold on. I want to see. Can I? Oh, I can't copy your comment out of this. Hold on. I want to see if I can figure out how much that is. I don't know what the exchange rate on that might be. This is great podcasting, by the way, as you're watching me use my phone to search for something. Yen to USD. Wait a minute. You did not spend 990 yen. Nicholas, no. How 990 yen is like $7. Do you mean like hold on. Do you mean like 900,000 yen? Or like 99,000 yen? Is that what you mean? Because if you spent $7 on an Xperia 1 Mark V, I find me another one and I will send you $7 and buy it from you. Dave Burns, PG&E strikes again. Yeah, we're probably going to get a few more flickers out here. So what I think this is we've been getting a lot more rain and wind again. We've been getting a lot more rain and wind again. We just have, up in the hills, we've got old power lines, and it's very easy for like a tree branch to just like swing across an old power line out by the high school or something like that. So we get a lot of these preemptive, like, hey, weather's going to be real bad, so we're just going to shut your power off and shut it down. Oh, Dave Burns is saying I might be doing more data analysis in the future, so that's good to hear. Yeah, again, like we complain about things like Microsoft Office on mobile, but when you have Windows on ARM, you don't have mobile Microsoft Office, you just have full versions of Microsoft Office. And that's another reason why I love writing on my Robo-Ancala, because it's full Word. Not going through a web browser versions of Word, like the actual Microsoft Office, Microsoft 365 program that lives on your computer. Michael Peppertech, there's no official word yet on this. Michael asks if there's any word if the X Elite is going to be coming to more than just laptops. Will we see mini PCs and tablets running these chips? I have to believe the first tablet-y form factor is going to be the Surface. I will be very surprised if there is not a Surface Pro 10 ARM version. But I think that's going to be our first slate. I think Lenovo could possibly come in with another slate. I would be very surprised if by the end of 2025, the Lenovo foldable laptop isn't running Windows on ARM. It makes so much more sense to run a Qualcomm chip in a foldable like that, and then also give it some cellular capabilities with a better modem and radio. But I'm really hoping, and I've been kind of obnoxious to some of the mini PC suppliers that I've worked with, just The second there's any inclination or any indication that you might be doing some kind of mini Nook style PC, you've got to hit me up. And all of them have said, oh, well, we're looking at what might, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's going to happen right away because the first batch of chips coming out of Qualcomm are probably sold out through the end of the year from the major OEMs. But like I was saying, by 2025, I have to believe we're going to be seeing Chromebooks that are running beefier ARM chips. I have to believe that MediaTek is going to have something to say about a PC space or a PC style solution. And then NVIDIA and AMD were both making noise about how they might be contributing to future ARM PCs. If it's like a GPU that's built to be a discrete graphics card for a Windows on ARM machine, or if it's literally just AMD might want to try and put out their own ARM reference design. Excuse me, that could be a thing too. But I think this first wave is really just going to be the premium laptop space. Probably machines starting at $1,000. Hopefully we'll see sales at the end of the year like $700 to $800. But, I think Samsung will probably put out a notebook at that 80-watt power spec, and then that'll be like a $2,000 or $2,200 machine, something really, really expensive. I bet the Surface is also going to be a very expensive machine. But I think that's going to be the first wave. After that, I will be shocked if this doesn't expand to other areas. Dave Burns, why is Windows on ARM file system better? Windows on ARM file system isn't better than Windows 11. It just is Windows 11's file system. I was replying to the person who did not like the Mac file system, and if you don't like Apple's file system, but you still want the power efficiency of a MacBook, then the only solution you have is Windows on ARM. That's what I was referencing. So Windows on ARM is Windows 11. It functions exactly the same way as an x86 PC does. And if you don't like how Apple organizes your files, then that would be my recommendation, is to see what an ARM chip might do. From Nick A. Every Windows ARM device has had upgradable storage. The other thing I want to see is X Elite versus Ultra 7 13th gen, as the 14th gen is on the verge. There is no chance for a Windows phone. Microsoft has given up on a new mobile app platform. They did infuse that plumbing into legacy apps with Maui. So, yes, sorry. Nick A., I'm trying to think, and I think you're right. I don't know of any previous Windows on ARM machine that was fused shut. I think, wasn't one of the Surface X? No, actually, I think that one still had upgradable storage too. The thing is, I don't want us to look back at the old 8CX days and assume that that's what we're going to get for the new laptops coming out. I think it's very likely that, like, Samsung will release the thinnest, sleekest Windows machine that's ever been produced with an OLED. It'll be $2,000, and you won't be able to touch anything on the inside of it because Samsung desperately wants to be like Apple. I feel like that is totally a possibility. So that's what I'm trying to prime people for. I'm hoping that we see the same kind of repairability in a Surface Pro 10 ARM that we see on the Surface Pro 10 and the Surface Pro 9, and that means we should have access to the SSD. If Microsoft does that, we've got hope that other OEMs will also choose that as one potential path, and I also think it's more likely a Lenovo might do something similar. If they're expecting that businesses are going to buy these systems, having something like SSD accessibility might be a draw for fleet machines and imaging different laptops and making those systems happen. But I don't want us to assume it's going to be a foregone conclusion, and then new systems come out and everything is soldered in MacBook style is going to be very disappointing. It'll be very disappointing regardless, but it's even more disappointing if you had your hopes up and then the market turns out to not give us that kind of capability. But as for a chance, I don't believe there will be a Windows phone, like a Lumia. I think Microsoft is properly done with that, but I don't think Microsoft is completely done with the Surface. and the Surface as a tablet, I still believe this is outside. This is Juan putting on his future prognosticator. I hope this thing could really happen. But if you made a folding device, a mini tablet that folds into a double thick sandwich phone-like thing, that's the area where we might see some potential return for a Surface that has cell phone radio capabilities. I think we'll see a Surface Pro 10 SQ4 or whatever they're going to call it for Snapdragon Qualcomm Chip X Elite. They'll have their own fancy name for the chip, which makes no sense to me. Just call it the chip that it is. But we'll see a Surface Pro 10 ARM, and that'll probably have the 5G radio, the Qualcomm radio in it, just like the Surface Pro 9 SQ3 had. And if there's any momentum on that, that's when I think we could see the potential for a Surface Pro foldable. And it folds, it's a mini Surface that folds in half, and it probably won't run X Elite, but it could run something like Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. And then Microsoft has a Surface tablet. It's a Surface tablet. It could also double as your business phone. And that's where I think that could still happen. But just a straight slate Lumia style device, that's gone. That's never coming back. But the Duo, I think they learned a lot from the Duo, and they know not to rely on Android for that. I think Microsoft could come back and give us something like that in 2 years. I mean, not right away, but in a little while. Oh, Nicholas was saying it should have been Euro. Okay. Nicholas, that makes so much more sense. Like, you bought an Xperia for $7. It's like, there's no way you bought one for 990 yen. That's awesome. That's a good buy. Again, 990 euro is still a pretty good buy. Oh, Descript. Nick Gay is saying Descript is a one-click delete on air, etc. You can edit video based on the transfer. All right, I might have to try that. I'll see if I can give that a shot too. One-click Descript. All right, I'm gonna pull that up and I'm gonna see what we can do. So DTNL, I just hope Windows sticks with ARM this time. Give it a few generations to gain traction and pull in the big numbers. I mean, Microsoft never left Windows on ARM. From the original 8CX through Gen 2 and Gen 3, Windows on ARM has continued to exist and iterate and get better. Like, the situation that we have today with Windows on ARM is vastly different than we were like 3 years ago. And it's pretty good. It's really good. As a modern operating system looking forward, it's excellent. As a modern operating system that also needs to install 20-year-old programs, it's actually pretty decent. It's not great, but you can do a lot more on it than you think you can with emulation layers. Just like Windows 11 isn't keeping code bases natively installed and ready for like Windows XP programs. It runs in a compatibility layer, but we have a lot more compute power to make it look like it's being natively run. So Windows on ARM still has all of that. We just lacked the horsepower from the hardware to really make that a more seamless transition for a consumer who might have some of those legacy software issues. I just don't think that's the vast majority of consumers. The big problem has been, because they're so unique and there haven't been very many of them, the solutions are a lot more expensive. And so your dollar per performance is out of whack. The 8CX Gen 3, the Surface Pro SQ3, was selling at a price that you easily could have picked up a great gaming laptop. So you have to say, do I want Core i3 level performance and a 5G radio for the same price as like a really beefy gaming PC, like a Razer Blade 14? And a lot of people are still going to go, you know what? No, that's a lot to pay for that kind of performance. That's why I was so hot on the Robo Ancala, is on sales. The MSRP is still silly high, but it's regularly on sale, and you could pick up this tablet that goes toe-to-toe with the Surface Pro 9S Q3 and it costs significantly less with a keyboard and a stylus. That's all been evolving. And even now, my experience with the Robo Ancala has been better than when it launched. So I know Microsoft has been making updates to Windows 11 that have also benefited Windows on ARM. Michael Corcoran, Lenovo also makes a Surface Pro clone. That could be compelling, like the Robo Ancala. The keyboard is detachable, but still works via Bluetooth, which is a great feature that I wish Microsoft would do. It's so handy. You pop off the keyboard and you have this keyboard and trackpad blade, and you can kind of move the tablet where you want it, and you just go to town. It's so handy. It's really fun. But yeah, I really feel like Lenovo, I don't think Lenovo will do their, what is the name of their Surface Pro clone? I don't think Lenovo is gonna do that first. I'd be willing to wager a whole dollar. I bet Lenovo is going to put it into a traditional laptop form factor first, and then on the exciting, expensive end of their products, I think it's going to go into their folding laptop, that big folding laptop tablet hybrid thing, and then it'll end up in a more Surface Pro-like device. I think these companies are going to work really hard not to step on each other's toes. So Surface Pro is going to be the slate tablet version. Lenovo Foldable will be the folding tablet version. The more ThinkPad style thin and light, Lenovo. The bigger OLED media entertainment device, Samsung. I think we're going to see the OEMs not necessarily collude, but not try to eat up each other's target demographics. Where Samsung knows Lenovo is really strong, they're not going to be rushing to try and beat Samsung one-to-one in that exact same product. Where these other companies know Microsoft likes to make this Halo product out of the Surface Pro, they'll probably slow play their own tablets. That's my guess. Because there aren't going to be an infinite number of these chips to go around. So you want to sell your systems to your target consumers and your strongest sales demographics and focus on what your company does best. That's what I hope will happen. So it's not that there's going to be 5 flavors of device from Samsung with this new chip. It'll be there's one lower price SKU, one higher price SKU, but what Samsung does, that's going to be unique to the Samsung experience. So our competition isn't going to be 5 different devices from Samsung. It's going to be, if I want this kind of form factor, I'm going to go to that OEM. And if I want that kind of feature, I'm going to go to a different OEM instead. Oh, Michael Corcoran got candy from his ma. Happy Easter, Michael Corcoran. Oh yeah, Michael Corcoran. Again, this is something I have to believe is coming. I would like to see Google make some ARM criteria for their Chromebook Plus models. Right now, they promise a minimum Core i3 for x86 chips, but they don't mention anything about ARM-based. So this is stuff that has to play out in the market, where these chips can be purchased, the manufacturing deals from these companies, the weird divisions that we see even internally from companies that make both Windows machines and Chromebooks, how they don't seem to ally their manufacturing. I have to believe that there is going to be a Chromebook Plus ARM version, but I don't believe that's going to come until sort of mid-2025. I don't think we're going to see that right away. And I think one of the things that some of these companies might be waiting on is some kind of response from another company other than Qualcomm. If MediaTek comes out and says, hey, we've been doing big core on our phones. The Dimensity 9300 is a monster of a compute platform. And literally, if we just took the Dimensity 9300 and put active cooling on it, it would be an incredible performer. The 9300, if we believe all of these synthetic benchmarks, can outperform my 12th gen Core i7U in a phone. And that phone draws max like 15 watts of power. A U-series Intel 12th gen Core i7, It draws a lot more than 15 watts of power. So if I could just take the Dimensity 9300 and put that into a Chromebook, that would be a Chromebook significantly more powerful than Core i3s and any of the Companion and ARM chips that we've used in the past. It would murk my 8CX Gen 3 Robo Ancala. Like, it is not close how much more powerful the Dimensity 9300 is passively cooled than my Robo Ancala. So if we could just do that, that would be a huge shot in the arm. Pun intended. That would be a huge shot in the arm for Chromebook Plus. Completely agree. Let's see. Oh yeah, Nicholas. I mean, this is also something that they could play off too. You could look at the Lenovo Ultimate with 2 screens. A lot to like, was a bit too expensive, but really nice. And anytime we do play with those kinds of hinged solutions, it's gonna be pricey. It's gonna be really expensive. As soon as you add a hinge to a consumer electronic, you really should be thinking this is about twice what I would pay for the single screened or the non-hinged version of this product. Like, you cut that price in half, and that's what it should have been. Like, the Duo would have been a great, for its time, the Duo would have been a great $600 to $700 phone, but then we added a hinge. It's a $1,600 phone you got now, right? That's the kind of expectation we should be going into. The fancier we make the folding, flipping, bending, multiple screen version of this idea, significantly raises all the prices for manufacturing. Oh, that's true too, Michael Peppertech. Nick Gay saying the Lenovo foldable laptop is an Intel reference design that has intellectual rights that belong to Intel. So that's probably where we're running into some of our distribution issues, because Microsoft had a very chummy relationship with Intel for a long time, and it kind of has been broadening that a little bit, but Microsoft and Intel still seem to go hand in hand. And Intel is responsible for a lot of hardware and design and manufacturing. It's only been recently that Intel got rid of the NUC line. The NUC line now technically lives under ASUS's label, but a lot of what ASUS is doing is built on Intel manufacturing acumen. And so we haven't seen as many AMD-based systems for little mini PCs in the big OEM space, right? HP's, Dell's, Lenovo's, ASUS, a lot of their solutions for mini PC have been Intel. And I would bet you, Nick Gay, that it's probably something similar to what you just said about Lenovo's foldable. Then we can go down into some of the alternative designs and form factors for mini PCs in the sort of the laptop-y space, like these systems that are like B-Link and Minis Forum and Ace Magic and Geekom. They're starting to play with a lot of AMD kit and AMD laptop parts, but we haven't seen it as much from the big OEMs, and I bet you it's licensing and distribution deals like that. Oh, Raymond, we all do. I long for a quality Surface Pro ARM where I can still upgrade. I'd love to upgrade RAM again in a laptop. Agreed. No, so again, people are saying a DTNL saying, so basically a Duo. You want a Duo. And Goat V8 is saying, oh, we should resurrect the Surface Neo. And I think resurrecting the Surface Neo could happen. I think that is possible when we have a chip that performs better in those kinds of thin, light, foldable, battery-efficient kinds of ways. There's a lot that still needs to happen. I'm making this sound a lot easier than it really is, but these companies have done a lot of legwork into alternative form factors, and they've been held back by the current tech that we use in AMD and Intel chips. And with some kind of diversification, some kind of disruption in the performance per watt category, that opens up the possibility for a lot of other designs. I mean, think about it. I mean, separate it from the baggage of it being an iPad, and separate this from Apple's stupid software decisions where Mac OS runs on this, but iPad OS runs on that. M series chips run really well in iPads. This is already like a yet another proof of concept that this idea works really well. So Microsoft doesn't have a distinct tablet operating system. They've really worked to make Windows 11 as broad a catch-all OS as they can. And with my Robo and Kala, I'll never go back in earnest. I'll never really use like an iPad to try and get work done because I have a full operating system in my Robo and Kala. That's what I want moving forward. I want my tablet to be a computer, not a limited mobile device because the company wants me to buy a tablet and a computer. That's where I think this is going to start shaking things up a lot, and where we could get something like the Surface Neo design back, the Lenovo Foldable could change. All of these things could be, all of these things will be impacted by better battery life. Excuse me. Yeah, see, like, Nicholas, this doesn't sound extravagant to me, though. That Lenovo Ultimate 2 screen had, that Lenovo Ultimate 2 screen system had a Core i7 processor at an €1,800 price tag. You're like, okay, that sounds like a lot. It's a Core i7 and probably was a lower power Core i7. But if I pick up this right here, this is my Surface Duo. Before I added the pen, this was a $1,600 phone. So if I give this more space, the manufacturing actually gets a little easier. So I would totally believe if we did a 2-panel or a 2-screen laptop product, be about $1,800, maybe $2,000. Inflation's getting all of us. But like, that doesn't sound extraordinary to me. That doesn't sound so far off the cuff, and we'd be benefiting from having a better performance package. Like, that to me actually kind of makes sense. It's expensive, and a lot of people are going to be disappointed by that, but I don't think we should be rushing to devalue the radical form factor differences. You tell me a regular clamshell laptop that doesn't have anything fancy attributed to it is going to cost me $2,000. I'm not going to be that impressed. But if you've made something that is shockingly thin, gets great battery life, can be used in a variety of form factors, can be used kind of tablet style with one screen, or can be used with a keyboard and a mouse in a dual display configuration, to me that sounds like an $1,800 to $2,000 system. That's what it kind of should cost. Nick Gay, I would also not be surprised by this either. Nick Gay says, I would bet money that 8CX moves to Chromebook and Orion cores are reserved for Windows. So I agree with you in like the next year. But if Qualcomm is successful, because they're going Orion cores for X Elite, and then they're going to go Orion cores for the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. So Qualcomm will want to pay ARM less money. So they will work to use their own core designs and only pay the sort of licensing fee for the architecture, not the actual ARM reference designs. 8CX is built on ARM reference designs. So I think the medium-term to long-term strategy is get Orion cores in Windows machines, get Orion cores in phones, and then you can make a tiers of chips that could be used in phones, tablets, laptops, desktops, consoles, and as little money as they can, they will want to pay ARM as little as they can. And that's where I feel they're going to transition aggressively. In the near term, they already have these kinds of chips, these kinds of designs, these kinds of products. They've got years of support and licensing that they still need to live up to. They can't just pull the plug on anything that was ARM reference. So I think they'll want to exhaust that supply and then move their customers, their manufacturing partners over to Orion as aggressively as they can. But that's still going to take like 2 years. So I think like the entire process is gonna eventually point us towards Qualcomm focusing on their own chip design. And that's where Orion could also be really exciting. At the same time, I bet you MediaTek is going to stick with ARM reference for at least another year or two. I haven't heard anything about MediaTek trying to create its own custom core design. We'll have to see what Samsung does. Samsung could be an outlier in this. They could do something disruptive too. Samsung used to be one of the most exciting, like especially back in the Hummingbird days, of making their own custom cores that weren't ARM reference, and then Exynos kind of morphed into something different, and now it's not a very exciting piece of silicon, but they could also be working on something that could disrupt in the space too. And I would not put it past like an NVIDIA to come back into this space and try and make a bigger play. Like, hey, we can get around AMD. We had all that experience with Tegra. We've been just printing money on Tegra for the Nintendo Switch. So the next version of that is going to be this, and we've come up with our own cores and our own GPU design and our own performance, and that's what's going to be powering your next Steam Deck, is some version of a Tegra-like chip. That's where all of these things can start moving in different directions, and that, I think, could be really exciting. It's still a big if, because we have to see what happens this summer with Windows on ARM. The dual screen Lenovo is also an Intel reference design too with the keyboard, and so was the Surface Duo and the original Surface. So, yeah, so Nikkei, I think we're getting a little hung up on like one aspect of this. Like Surface Neo would have been an Intel chip, but Surface Duo is a Qualcomm chip, so it can be an Intel reference design. Sure, but it was sold with Qualcomm parts inside of it. I've got two of them, right? I've got a Snapdragon 855 and I've got a Snapdragon 888. So just because there was Intel manufacturing involved in making a Lenovo dual screen laptop doesn't mean Lenovo can't figure out their own flavor of a dual screen laptop free of Intel's influence. Just because there is one shell that Intel had some influence over doesn't mean that Lenovo also hasn't been one of the most radically aggressive design firms in the world. From the Twist to the Yoga to all of the tablets that they've built, tablets with bendy folding parts, tablets with built-in projectors, tablets with multiple accessories. Asus was also in that camp. Dell has done some work in that camp. I don't think HP's done anything particularly exciting since they bought Transmeta and Compaq, but HP was responsible for like the TC series back in the day. Every one of these companies, even though they've worked with Intel, we've seen other recent examples of how, hey, we built this system and then we can make an AMD variant of that. Hey, we worked with Intel on making a Neo reference design, and then the Duo comes out and it's not running an Intel chip. There is no Intel chip that would work in a Duo. That can happen with laptops too. So it's messy, because in this first wave, X Elite is going to be intrinsically tied to Windows on ARM. It's just stapled together. We know this first wave of products, Qualcomm getting Microsoft on board, they've signed this exclusivity deal, but that exclusivity deal is also sunsetting this year. So there's a reason why MediaTek hasn't tried that aggressively to get a PC chip out for Windows machines. Why bother trying to fight a Microsoft Qualcomm deal? But when that ends, that's where we open up all of the potential for other form factors, other manufacturers, other players in the ARM space, and that benefits Chrome, and that benefits Linux, and that benefits Apple to a degree. It brings more credibility and viability to the platform, and it also gets developers more interested in making their apps for this type of architecture. And that's really where we hope that by the end of 2025, we're seeing that diversification and we're starting to see more options hitting those spaces. This, like I said, this first wave is going to be probably a Surface Pro and a Surface laptop, a pair of Samsung SKUs. This is my guess. I don't have any inside information on this. A traditional Lenovo ThinkPad style laptop, maybe some kind of detachable or two-in-one, and then we ride out 2024 on that series of products. Then in 2025, we start seeing other stuff happen too. That's my hope. We'll see. Sorry, Nikkei. Yes, but Orion is a joint written or unwritten venture with Microsoft. That's kind of what I just said. Is yes. The only reason this chip is going to exist is because people want to make a laptop that runs Windows that gets better battery life. That's the main reason X Elite. That's the main reason why Qualcomm bought out the company that made the Orion cores to facilitate this. They want to be a big player in the PC space. But these cores, the individual Orion cores, are going to show up in Android devices this year. That's Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. These cores are going to show up in connected car. These cores are going to start showing up in the next version of AR headsets. These cores are going to go everywhere. Orion is not going to live only in Windows laptops. So that's where we're going to see the diversification of platforms and services and hardware and gadgets. That's why we should be a little bit more excited about this, because it's a transition away from ARM reference designs to Qualcomm's own proprietary core solution. So we're going to start wrapping this up. I really wanted this to be a fun town hall, and I am so sorry that we couldn't get other people able to call in. I'm so upset. I worked all morning, and it was working until it wasn't, which is the worst feeling in the world. It's the worst feeling to be like, it's working, I did a test, I did a recording where audio was coming in, I walked into another room, I was on this wireless mic, everything was great. Hey guys, come join this room, and we can't hear anything. And just killed me. So we're gonna find a way to make this happen, and I hope I can like warn people. Like I hope I can promote it. But the thing is, like, it might just happen one week, and then all of a sudden there's the ability to like call into the show, because like apparently if I tell people about it beforehand, it doesn't work. So I've got a ton of work now to make this happen and make this like a regular version of the podcast, because I didn't prep any of that. So I've got to go back and cut this up and reformat the blog post. I might just scrap the blog post and republish it. But yeah, we'll play it out. So the best laid plans of mice and men, and I definitely got real mousy on this one. But apparently, in a broad conversation about the tech we're excited for, it seems like there's a lot of interest in what could happen with Windows laptops this summer. So I kind of feel like I'm kind of on the right path. Like I'm easing up a little bit on phone coverage this year, and I'm really excited for some of these laptops and portables. And it seems like that's regularly a part of this conversation that folks like to jump back into. And this episode ended up being a little techier actually than I was expecting it to be. But one of these weeks, I will pin you all down, and we will have a feels philosophy conversation. And it won't just be what benchmark this or what laptop that. We can talk about our feelings on marketing and law and regulating, and just kind of open it up a little bit and hear some voices back and forth against each other that can kind of facilitate that broad conversation. I really like the big thinking, feeling conversations. It doesn't always have to be the this phone has how many megapixels conversation. So stay tuned. It'll happen eventually. I'm going to make it happen. I don't know when. I don't know how, but I will find it someday. So I didn't do a housekeeping. I have videos out. I have articles out. I wrote a review of The Three Body Problem on Netflix. That's on the Patreon. It's early access on the Patreon. You can catch that on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. I've got a very difficult laptop review for me coming out probably tomorrow. just published a really great review on this killer widescreen gaming notebook. This killer widescreen gaming monitor from Innocen. Just a phenomenal piece of tech there. Great display. There's lots of stuff. And then also make sure you're keeping up with all of our tech pals that are streaming throughout the week across a various number of YouTube channels. You know, hang out with some really good tech conversations there too. And folks, I want you to have an amazing week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. I'll catch you all back here for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. Take care. I love y'all. I'll catch you back.